tax compliance automation company. So we handle sales tax in the United States, GST in Canada, and content for over 190 countries. And that's kind of where I want to start here. So one of the things to really understand about the global tax compliance world is it's growing in complexity every single day. So, in the United States, a few years ago, there was a big Supreme Court case that established economic nexus. All across the world, countries are going in e-invoicing, live reporting. So everything's getting a lot more complex. Governments are getting a lot more demanding, and it's hard to manage that without, a technology partner that can help straighten things out and offer some transparency. So we also are a very partner-led company. So early on in our business, we started to partner with ERPs to make sure that we could help kind of augment some of the things that ERPs have just never done all that well. Tax is super complicated, and it's really hard to handle it without, like a really distinct technology partner like us. So built-in tax engines, like the one within GP, don't handle exemption certificates very well. There's, more complex types of tax like consumers use or customs and duties that, these systems just aren't designed for. So that's where our integration comes in. In the, our overall products and services, we have a whole host of offerings that can help you in any sort of indirect tax compliance. So on the purchase side with use tax or, input credits across the world, on the sales side, collecting that sales amount or the VAT rate. We also help automate and store exemption certificates, and we can help you file any of these taxes across the world. Along with that, we have like a whole host of supporting technologies, so things like property tax, communications tax, licenses and registrations, 1099s. We are here to help you with a whole host of compliance problems. Now, specific to Microsoft, Microsoft was one of our first partners in the history of our business. We've been partners with them for over 20 years. We have, I think 9 different distinct Microsoft Dynamics products. We're going to obviously talk about GP today. But the way that most of these work is we're essentially lightweight apps that are installed directly in your GP environment. And then we help automate the tax calculation, and we just replace a lot of that internal functionality. So let me dive right into GP here. So just confirming, is my screen visible here with GP?
It
Yeah,
is.
perfect. Thanks, Amy. All right, so where I want to start here is the Avatax configuration. So basics here, you're going to add your credentials just like you would any other app. And again, this is a pretty lightweight, integration that's not trying to cause too much trouble in your GP environment. We're really just trying to make tax calculation a little more seamless. What I want to point out here is this tax schedule. So the process of getting Avalara up and running within your GP environment is really just about creating this tax schedule ID. And that is going to replace a lot of your, maybe default or set up configured tax schedules. So instead of having a bunch of different tables with a bunch of different rates, you just have one tax schedule ID. It says Avatax. And that's how GP knows, hey, let's bounce out to Avalara to get our tax determination. The other thing I like to point out here is that you can also map the GL where Avalara's taxes end up. So you can totally architect exactly where you want your data to end up. Now, when we talk about tax determination, it's more than just, where is this invoice going? What's the rate in Dallas, Texas, right? There's also another layer, which is what is the product or service being sold here? So Avalara understands products and services through what we call Avalara goods and services codes. So I'm going to pull up one of my items here and take a look at one of these codes. So looking under the options, actually, hang on, let me point out the tax schedule ID here on the item is Avatax. So that's going to help make sure that GP calls out to us. But opening up the options, under this taxability field, you see this value, PC040100. Well, that's one of Avalara's goods and services codes. So this is going to be sent across when GP reaches out to us for a tax determination. And that's how we'll be able to understand, oh, hey, well, this is in a electronic device. So that means that it's going to be taxable in Washington State and it's going to be exempt in Minnesota. All of those state-specific, jurisdiction-specific content rules are mapped to these tax codes. What I love about this view is that you can keep this in one source of truth for your item records. You can map it right here within GP. The other element of tax determination is with our customers, right? We want to make sure that we can help you manage our exemption certificate module. And just like your item records, GP is able to, actually sync the customer exemption certificates right here from your customer card. So opening this up, I'm going to take a look at one of my customers who has an exemption certificate in Washington State. So under the address tab here, if I open up additional, you can see there's a whole host of Avalara functionality. I can validate this address. I can actually get a latitude, longitude to make sure that the address I've got for this customer is exactly accurate. One of the things that Avalara does a little bit differently than other folks in the market is we use rooftop geolocation for our tax rates. So getting this latitude and longitude is super helpful so that we can make sure we're giving you the exact precise rate that you need. However, I also want to point out I can create this customer record into Avalara's exemption module. I can also add their exemption certificate right here from within GP. I can also initiate a request for an exemption certificate. So I can actually have Avalara email my customer requesting a new certificate, and I can kick that email off right here from within the customer card in GP. So we can automate almost everything about collecting and calculating for these exempt customers, and it offers a lot of proactivity and transparency to managing that exemption ecosystem. Let's look at how it all comes together, though, on a transaction. So I'm going to enter up an invoice here. I'm going to ship something to my good friend Aaron Hill. I'm going to go ahead and add a customer here, or I'm sorry, an item here. And you can see right now under the tax field, nothing is showing. Avatax is the tax schedule ID here, but we haven't triggered a calculation yet. There's two ways that you can trigger this calculation. I can hit save on this invoice, and that will trigger a call out to our system. So that's the sort of synchronous process. I can also, under additional, hit calculate tax. It's going to call out to our system and update this tax field. You can see that was pretty instantaneous. Our average response time is less than 10 milliseconds. So we work really hard to make sure that we're not slowing down your Great Plains environment. If I open this tax field up, now we're seeing the tax amount right here. And of course, this will map back to whatever GL I've configured, and this will also book a transaction on the Avalara side so that we can help you file any returns that you need to file. So short story, Avalara's got you covered from the calculation perspective. We'll help understand what your items are and how those are taxed across the country, help you maintain your exemption certificates, and at the end of the day, make sure that that money is getting back in the hands of the states. That's the 10,000-foot view of Avalara. I'll go ahead and dive into the chat and answer any questions there. But if you want to see, a more fine-tooth comb demo of GP, please get in touch. Happy to walk you through it. I think that's me, Amy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mac.